So today I want to deep dive the conversation around Nintendo Switch Online and what is really going on with this service in the year of 2023, because you might realize that we just had our final Direct of the year, the September Nintendo Direct, which if you look at history is always a big one for Nintendo Switch Online, since the service was additionally unveiled and rolled out with its first round of content featuring things like online play, save cloud data, and the NES library of games. It has been in the September Nintendo Direct in a big way to be focused on for extra updates. We saw the reveal of the Super NES at the September Nintendo Direct in 2019. Then fast forward to 2021 and we got the big confirmation that Nintendo 64 and Sega Genesis would be coming to Nintendo Switch Online in the form of the expansion pack, which is really a big point of today's conversation because that's the higher paid tier that you do have to pay $50 annually for an individual membership. And while you maintain all of the base tier perks such as the base consoles, in addition to maintaining things like your online play access, you are really paying for that N64 and Sega Genesis library of games at that point in time. And then you fast forward to the next September Nintendo Direct in 2022, and while we didn't have any new systems announced, we got a detailed roadmap of N64 games that would be, in Nintendo's own words, gradually added into the service over time. And boy, have we sure seen them stick to that, because that's when we really got off the cycle of seeing one new N64 game per calendar month added into NSO consistently. But in February, things changed because we got a big surprise breaking the traditional wait until September for a big NSO update. Nintendo surprise dropped the Game Boy family of systems, with the Game Boy and Game Boy Color games being added into the base tier of the service, and of course the Game Boy Advance being that additional value add for expansion pack members to justify that $50 annual price point. Now, the biggest reason the September Nintendo Direct historically has been a big presentation for Nintendo Switch Online has to do with the timing of when many users' memberships expire, and Nintendo wants to get ahead and tell people why they should remain subscribed to their annual price points of either $50 or $20 for the two different tiers of the service. Now, I did not forget that we saw F-Zero 99 unveiled at the most recent September Nintendo Direct, and you could say that that was the one thing that was Nintendo Switch Online focused for this event. And while I think the game is fantastic, it's way more fun. If you guys haven't downloaded this game and played it yet, please do that. It's legitimately a great time, and I can see myself spending many hours enjoying it from here. But there's even potentially new stages to come, new game modes that data miners have revealed. I'm pretty pumped about that announcement, but that was the only Nintendo Switch Online announcement. We didn't get any kind of updated roadmap for things like N64 games or Game Boy Advance games. And then you have to talk about the fact that that roadmap that we got in September of 2022 for N64 games is still not finished at this point in the year. We don't have Mario Party 3 and 1080 snowboarding as part of that roadmap. And I honestly thought that this would be the time to come out with all of the other heavy hitters and at least tell us that they are on the way in some way, shape, or form, like your Smash Bros 64 with online play. I know people are waiting for that one. Donkey Kong 64 can be brought back to modern resolutions and screens. And while many online will argue that game hasn't aged well, if you have the nostalgia for it, I still think it's going to be a fantastic adventure for people to dive through. And then Diddy Kong Racing, Banjo-Tooie. We have a lot of different rare games that, yes, you do have to get Microsoft involved to get them to actually clear them to come to NSO, but that is where I'm worried about Nintendo. Are they willing to pay the money that is necessary to get certain licensing fees paid and certain agreements signed to make sure that we really build out the library of available games on the N64 console? And that's where I think you can really start to ask questions on how much Nintendo's going to prioritize it from here, because if you just look at 2023, at one point in time, we went 4 full months, 4 entire months, 120 plus days without a single new N64 game being dropped into the service. They've since made up a little bit of ground. We got that surprise Pokemon Presents with the Shadow Drop announcement of Pokemon Stadium 2 available later that day, and then the end of August saw Excite Bike 64. And we've seen Nintendo sprinkling in some Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games throughout, but they really haven't done much to get fans excited about renewing for a $50 annual price point, which if you signed up in October, you may want to check on your membership date at this point in time, because surprise, that's about to come due for a whole nother year. And that's where I also take issue with how Nintendo is handling Nintendo Switch Online in the modern day, because while we are seeing them stick to lower price points than what the competition is, especially I've always compared them to Sony. Sony recently did a giant price hike on PlayStation Plus, and now it's $80 for their base tier for an annual membership, which is absolutely crazy considering that you have to have that just to play online play with them. And you can argue that yes, Nintendo's charging us far less than that, but they also need to really evaluate how they do their pricing structure when you don't have some kind of commitment from them in terms of an updated roadmap. When we finally do see Mario Party 3 and 1080 snowboarding added in, we will have zero clue when, if at all, we will see any additional N64 games get added into this service, and we won't know anything about what to expect from the big ones from here. We also have Nintendo asking for that full payment 12 months in advance in good faith from us consumers, without any kind of direct communication from them on how frequently they're actually going to stick to updating the content roadmaps. If we could stick to one GBA and one N64 game per month for the expansion pack tier, and then we have the rotating rest of the consoles, Sega Genesis popping in every other month, and NES and SNES occasionally getting updates throughout the year, I think that that's a little bit more reasonable. But we are really in a point in time where I think the same way we've been talking about Nintendo potentially focusing on the next generation of hardware when it comes to all of the ports and remasters that we've seen focused on at the most recent Nintendo Directs, it feels like they're kind of starting to treat Nintendo Switch Online as an afterthought for this console as well, and that's very concerning to me, considering that we don't know how much longer they're going to expect us to be okay with random content with no commitments from them and very spread out 4 months apart in some cases on libraries like the N64. How much longer do they do that before they do reveal the next generation hardware and they actually reveal to us what Nintendo Switch Online 2.0 will hold, which I do think is going to be a time that you will definitely want to be signed up. I think that that's likely when we could see things like GameCube get into the fold. I wouldn't expect it any sooner than that. I definitely think Nintendo's going to hold that back for next gen hardware, but until that happens, what's the real clear-cut reason that Nintendo is telling us consumers to stay subscribed to this service at $50 annually for the expansion pack? F-Zero 99 is a base tier update, as I mentioned. It's nice that we got that going for us in September, and we did see another base tier update in the form of some NES, Game Boy, and SNES games this month in September as well. But past that, we don't really know what to expect in terms of anything Game Boy Advance or N64 or even Sega Genesis, and that's really where I'm starting to get just a little bit concerned about what Nintendo is doing with the service in the tail end of the Nintendo Switch's life cycle. And I definitely hope that they turn a corner and surprise us around the holiday season, although with the lack of focus on the service, or it not even really being mentioned outside of F-Zero 99 at the most recent Direct entirely, I'm not really sold on the idea that Nintendo has a bunch coming for us this year, and I certainly hope I'm wrong about that. But that's really where I want to pose the question to you guys and ask how you feel at this point in time as a paying Nintendo Switch Online subscriber, if you indeed are one, or if maybe you're hanging back on the sidelines deciding not to renew, or seeing if Nintendo gives you a reason to sign up for the first time. How do you feel about the value of the service overall, where we stand towards the end of 2023 right now? And do you think that the September Direct and not having any kind of major mention of the service or update outside of F-Zero 99 is a red flag for what Nintendo has planned for the service from here? Or do you think that this is one of those swerve curveballs from Nintendo where they ramp down on content for a while, but we see them turn a corner and come back with regular monthly GBA, N64, Sega Genesis, and the rest of the family of console updates? And bonus question, what games do you hope we see added in and revealed next? And are you like me and you think GameCube's definitely being saved for next generation hardware? Or do you think there's some kind of chance that we still see it added into this generation that we have today? But regardless of your thoughts and feelings on everything we talked about today, I do look forward to hearing from you all in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around these topics. Go watch yesterday's video next if you haven't already, which is on screen right now. Also make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.